It is absolutely wonderful to be back here again, and you don't know this, but to be standing and walking. Not that it was a horrible accident or anything like that, but apparently I'm old, and I'm shopping at Aldi. Who likes Aldi? Oh, cheap food. Good, cheap food. I mean, not a plug for them. I get no money for this, but Aldi, come on. And I'm literally pushing my shopping cart, and I'm reaching for like old people food, like an avocado or something, and my back goes, shh. I could barely walk. Like, literally, yesterday I woke up, and I was walking through the kitchen like this, and my kid's like, Daddy, you look like Grandpa. I'm like, that's not good. I have to drive 5 hours tomorrow. Praise Jesus. Like, I can move for the most part. So if I just cramp up and go down, you're up, okay? If all of a sudden the back just slips out again, we'll just tag you in, all right? The Spirit will come upon you. It'll be all good. Check my mic pack to see if my mic pack's on. Hold on. This is, everyone talk amongst yourselves for a second. All right. Hey. Is that good? Yeah. There we go. The power of the microphone. All right. It is wonderful. It's absolutely awesome to be back with you again here. It's an honor to be asked to come back and to speak again at a conference. And I think maybe the reason why I was asked to come back is because of my extensive knowledge of you. Because let me describe your day. Let me see if I'm correct in this. When you wake up, the alarm goes off, right? Ba-doop, 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 and instantly, whoof, covers come off. You jump to the floor, and you're ready for your day, right? I'll keep going. I got this, okay? You get up, and you walk into the bathroom, and you go over to the bathroom, and you look at the mirror, and everything's perfect. You go put on your clothes, and everything fits because you're perfectly fit. Then you go and you eat breakfast and you slop nothing on your pants. And then you go to school or you go to work or whatever it is and you get green light after green light after green light. Makes sense. You get to school and at the beginning of school you get a pop quiz that's there and you ace it. Makes sense. You're at work in the morning and your boss gives you a new project to be able to do that no one else could fix and you crack it. Makes sense. You go to lunch with your friends at school or your friends at work, and you're laughing, and you have the wittiest conversation, and Carol snorts a soda out of her nose, and you slap nothing on your pants. And then you go back to school, and you go back to work, and everything is just smashingly wonderful, and everyone is praising you and high-fiving you. You go home, fast forward in the future, and you're married, and your spouse makes your favorite absolute meal, and you slap nothing on your pants. I have a problem with this. You watch your favorite TV show, you eat a bucket of ice cream because nothing sticks to your frame, and you go to bed because tomorrow you're going to do it all over again because that, my friends, that's your life. Is that right? If that's not you, then this talk that we're going to have right now, it's for you. Because most of us, none of us, feel like we're winning at life. Maybe small sections of our life are going pretty well for us, but most of us are not just crushing it and winning at life. And coming to a conference like this, there's probably something that drove you here, something that encouraged you to be here, something on you that you want to work on you with, not just here, but you've been trying to work on it for a while. A lot of the reason why we probably don't feel the way that I just described is because most of us feel like this guy. You ever seen a plate spinner? If you've never seen one of these, so a guy pops up a plate sits on his finger and puts it on one of those poles, pops up another one, puts it on a pole, pops up another one, puts it on the pole, and he just goes down the line. Eventually what happens? They stop spinning, so he's got to run back over here, right, and spin that one, go a little faster again, and he's trying to start another one over here, and this one slows down over here. And if you've ever seen these guys, they're running and zigging and zagging back and forth because everything is slowing down and things are out of balance. Doesn't that feel like life? You've got way too many responsibilities, and you're trying to spin all of them. There's one for home, and you're getting that going, and there's one for school or for work, and you get that going, and then you got sports that you're playing, and then the Packers are going to lose tomorrow. Keep that one spinning. Did I just lose the audience? Did I lose it? All right. Well, I need to tag you in, all right? I just lost it. It's over. So then you're spinning, and then girlfriend wants to talk to you, and you're trying to figure that out, and mom and dad are like, oh, they got to do the chores over here, so you're spinning those up again, and then there's a big test at work, and you got cut from the basketball team, and right? You're trying to get all these things, and there's plate, after plate after plate after plate that you're trying to balance and you're trying to spin in your life. What I want to talk to you tonight is about how God can balance out your life with all the crazy that is life. That truly, truly is this life. And my question I want you personally to wrestle with, so that you make this apply to you personally right now in your life, is what is causing you stress? What's wrecking you? What's going after you? What's causing your life to be out of balance? And tonight what we're going to do is we're going to look at an account in the Bible, a unique account that not a lot of people know a lot about, and to see how God might be able to balance out our lives. And we're going to do that by looking at Gideon. Now, maybe you've heard of Gideon, but that's about it for most people. Yet Gideon is a hero of the faith. He makes the who's who in the Bible in Hebrews chapter 11. And so we're going to hang out today in Judges chapter 6, 7, and 8. Let me set the stage for you. Let me show you how Gideon's life was out of balance. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples, so 4 different kinds of people, so at least 4 different invading nations, invaded and ruined the crops and did not spare a living thing for Israel. They did this for like 7 years straight. So the Israelites have like no food. They are destitute. They are overpowered by these military armies. They can't even live in their homes. They're hiding in rocks and behind rocks and caves. They're absolutely destitute. This has been going on and on and on. They came up with their livestock and their tents like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count them or their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. They are going to just destroy the Israelites further beyond the way that their lives are completely out of balance and destroyed right now. Camels. You see the cute little animal with a hump. You know what they saw? It was like the stealth bomber of their day. You realize that? That there were so many camels they couldn't even count them? A camel can go a week without water. You probably know that. A camel can be on a dead sprint 25 miles an hour for an hour or 2. So they can swoop into anywhere, wreak havoc, and then swoop back away. So nowhere in Israel were they safe. This is what was going on at that time. To put that into perspective, the fastest dude on the planet, Usain Bolt. What's your name? Isaiah? Isaiah, take a guess. How many miles per hour do you think it was when Usain Bolt ran and set a new world record of 9.58 for the 100-yard dash? 25? Very close. See, he did that for 10 seconds. He had to shut it down. A camel can do that for hours. And there's so many of them, we couldn't even count them. Do you see how out of whack their lives absolutely would have been? They were in this absolutely impossible situation. It wasn't going to get better. Friends, where's that for you in your life? Where are things out of balance, out of whack, impossible? And you go, God, I don't get it. God, I don't get how you're going to make this better. Gideon felt exactly the same. Now, who's Gideon? Gideon was the lowest of the lowest of the low. Gideon's an Israelite, but they're a conquered people, low. Of the 12 tribes of Israel, we learn in the book of Judges that Gideon's tribe was the lowest of the 12 tribes of Israel. And all the family clans, he's the lowest of that. Conquered people, lowest tribe, lowest family clan. He's a dud. He's an absolute nothing. But the first point I want to teach you and show you today is that when you think your life is out of balance, God does unexpected things. God balances your life in unexpected ways. Before I show you that with Gideon, I want to show you in a couple personal accounts in my life. Upper left, that's Richard Wensing. Richard Wensing, really cool guy, and his wife Beth, members of my church when I was a pastor at a church in Florida. And Richard was out ice skating with his grandchildren, having a good old time, and all of a sudden, whoop, boom, destroyed his butt, destroyed his tailbone, and it wouldn't heal. And he went in finally a couple days later. I don't know what's going on. Things just won't heal up. And they do the random, let's run some blood tests. Richard had cancer. He never would have known it unless he slipped and fell. So here he is mad about slipping and falling on the ice, embarrassed about slipping and falling on the ice, and without that happening, he doesn't learn about the cancer. We go, well, good. All right, God's got this cool plan. God's getting us in there early enough. Oh, it's stage 4 cancer. His daughter, who's a nurse, came up to me and said, hey, Pastor, we better start planning the funeral. My dad's not surviving this. He maybe has a week. Richard beat the cancer because God had other plans. But unless he slips in the ice, there's no way they even know about it until he just keels over basically dead one day. God balances your lives in unexpected ways. Upper right-hand corner, that is the Anderson family. Wife Nadine on the right, Dave, the husband, and then Brittany and Carly, also members of my former church in Florida. Before I ever got to know them, Nadine worked for Kohl's, and so she flew to New York constantly, and she was a purchaser for Kohl's. And when she'd fly, she'd often take her daughters and her mom with them. And their normal thing was they'd fly to New York. Super early, they would go over to the Twin Towers, and they would watch the sunrise on the Twin Towers, have breakfast, then Nadine would go about her day. Grandma would take the grandchildren off. They were set to fly to New York on September 10th, 2001. Which means they would have been on the top of the Twin Towers as soon as they opened on September 11th, 2001. Just before they go on this flight, Nadine all of a sudden says, Dave, I don't know why, but I don't want to go on this trip. I'm going to cancel my flight. And Dave's like, we can't cancel. It's too late to cancel. We're going to lose 4 flights. You can't do this. And he's upset. He's frustrated by this. She goes, I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm not going. I'm just not going. He's ticked. He's mad. They get into a fight, probably. I don't know the details. And then September 11th, 2001 happens. God balances our lives in these unexpected and absolutely amazing ways. On the left there, a picture of the ship that my, great-grandmother was going to get on, leaving and fleeing Germany and coming over to the U.S. And all these people are crowded down to get onto this boat, and they're putting more people on the boat, more people on the boat, and more people. Finally, they cut it off right in front of my great-grandma. She's pleading, I'm only me. I don't have anybody else with me. All my family's in America. Let me on that boat. And they wouldn't let her. She's mad at God and upset at God. God, why'd you fail me? Here I am. I spent all my money to get my ticket onto this ship. I'm destitute. I'm vulnerable. God, why did you fail me? That boat was so overcrowded, weighted so low, in a storm, it went down, and everyone on that boat died. If my great-grandma got her way, I don't exist. God balances our lives in unexpected ways. He just absolutely does. And we get so furious. Why is this happening? When you sometimes don't know the bigger plan that is there. I asked to do tours at Martin Luther College. That's where I studied to become a pastor. And they said no, and I was upset. I wanted to do them. Well, then one day a tour guide got sick. They said, freshmen don't give tours. I said, well, I want to give tours. They go, freshmen don't give tours. Okay. A tour guide got sick. I gave my tour, and I met my wife. Thank you, Jesus. There's my wife and our 4 daughters. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, you can awe at that. That's fine. I kind of meant for you to do that. So this would be a weird relationship if you didn't do that. So God balances our lives in unexpected ways, but too often we focus on the outside. We focus on all these things opposed to the main thing. And then the main thing looks different. I preached a few weeks back on Abraham and Sarah and how they're struggling with God's promise in order for them to have that child, that special child. And Sarah was mad at God, and Abraham figured out his own plan for God. And why did they do that? Because they forgot what is by focusing on what isn't. And what isn't was the fact they didn't have a child. They forgot what is. That God is powerful. God is sovereign, as Mike talked about. Too often we focus on the outside and we forget what's really the core and what's the center. You need to change your perspective, how is God at work in this to balance it out in my life? What if I told you that the top of the box and the bottom of the box were same color? What if I told you the top of that box and the bottom of that box are the same color? Nah, sounds pretty dumb, right? Okay, well, how about now? Suddenly, does it look like the bottom of the box is a little darker? Let me take that away again. Boom. The outside oftentimes shades in the inside. The outside shades in the main part. And so often the outside of the world, the things that really don't matter, but we make matter too much, puts a shade on the main thing, which is our trust in God. The top of that box and the bottom of that box are the same exact color. Let me take away the outside. They're the same color. But all the extras, all the outside, all the fringes, where we so often live and focus in life, takes our focus off the main thing. I remember one time my wife had a horrible hair day, a bad hair day, which is kind of not normal for my wife. My wife is a quick to get ready, and she's a quite beautiful lady, which if you could do that when you get married, that's lovely. Get that, okay? And so Debbie gets ready really fast, and one day she was having a wicked bad hair day, and she's mad at her hair, and we're on a date, and I'm like, let's go, we have a reservation, and I'm this caged animal, like, let's go. If you're going to get a future husband, don't get one like that. So we leave about 5-7 minutes late on this wonderful date that we were going to go on, and I'm trying to be cool and not be frustrated and be chill about it, but inside I'm kind of ticked off. We come across a horrible, horrible car accident that's about 5 to 7 minutes old. And I wonder, is that what God was doing? So often things happen, we don't realize why they happen, but God is sovereign and God is in control. Always for your good, but too often this is us. When the outside things don't go right, we get mad at God, the main thing. Let's go back to Gideon. All right, when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." That'd be like someone coming up to me and say, "What's up, muscles?" I don't have a lot of muscles. I just don't. Okay, right? Like, why is God calling Gideon the mighty warrior? Because he's the lowest of the lowest of the low. But who's talking? This is the angel of the Lord. This is truly God himself is talking to him, because God's got a plan, and God sees in Gideon what God is going to do through Gideon, and God sees in you what God is going to do through you. And that's why God sees you right now, and God calls you right now saint and holy, blameless in his sight, because he sees Christ in you, and he knows what he's going to do in you and through you. But Gideon goes, "I'm the lowest of the lowest of the low. God, I don't get it." So God says this: "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive." Now Gideon hears this and goes, "This is impossible." Because where is his focus? Not on the first part, where God goes, "I will be with you." All he hears is the negative. He forgets what is, because he focuses on what isn't inside of him. So often we forget what is because we focus on what isn't inside of us, right? So God says this to Gideon. "Gideon, before you do the Midianites, the Amalekites, and all these eastern peoples, I got a different challenge for you, Gideon. I'm going to do something first for you, Gideon. Gideon, tear down your father's altar to Baal. Cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord on top of its height. Using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down, offer the second bull as a burnt offering. In your hometown, wreck the worship spot in the hometown that isn't of me," God says. And did you catch how much harder this is going to be? Anybody see it? Look in the text for a second. I didn't highlight it in yellow. What makes this even harder to do? Your fathers. Your dad is the leader of worship to a false god, and you're going to go smash dad's temple to a false god and then build on top of it an altar to the Lord. That's pretty tough. But it's smaller compared to taking on these 4 different peoples, right? The next thing that God does for you, besides balancing out your life in unexpected ways, God balances your life with small steps of faith. For Gideon, God says, Gideon, before you can do this big leap of faith, this big leap of trust to take on these 4 different peoples, you got to take some small steps of faith. I didn't read it, but Gideon is this challenge before God: lay down some wool and have it be wet and the ground dry, and God does it. God, have the ground be dry and it be wet. Did I say that correctly? Yeah, sure. Okay. It was opposite. And he did it. Now God says, I got one more small step of faith. I need you to cut down that Asherah pole. Do that before you do the big step of faith of taking on these 4 different peoples. Let's pause on Gideon for a second. God does the same for you. God balances your life out. He grows your trust in Him out when you and I take those small steps of faith. So God has you and I, and there's a challenge in front of us. Are you going to, you're at school, you're at work, and everyone's gossiping. Are you going to join in the gossip? And you say, no. That's tough when everyone else is doing it. That's a small step of faith. And your parents confront you about something that you did that was wrong, and rather than lying, which you want to do, you tell the truth. That's a small step of faith. And you hate math. And there's someone next to you who's really good at math. And it'd be really easy to cheat off their test. But you don't. Small step of faith. And then later in your life, you have to deal with divorce. That's a big old step. Now, you can do that big step because you progressed in your faith. Here's what happens when we don't take those small steps of faith. If Gideon didn't take those small steps of faith, let's say that you were tempted to gossip and everyone else is gossiping, and rather than not joining in on it, you gossip too, and you don't take that step of faith, you slip backwards a little bit. Mom and dad confront you about something that's going wrong, and rather than telling them the truth, you lie and you cover it up. You don't take that step of faith, you slip backwards a bit in your faith. You cheat on the test. Now divorce comes. And here's the thing, to get over the fullness of the hurt of the divorce and to be whole again, it's not a step of faith that far. You got to be all the way to here. And you go, God, what gives? Come on, man. That's totally unfair. There's no way I can get from here all the way over to there. God, you're asking too much of me. And God says, my child, I was working to prepare you for this with trust in me, with all these small steps of faith, so that when the bigger one came, you'd be able to conquer because I would be with you. But your trust isn't there. Your trust wasn't there. It doesn't mean that God can't get you there. It's just going to be a lot harder. God balances your life with small steps of faith. Back to Gideon. So Gideon, he has done the fleece. He's cut down the Asherah pole. Now for the big step to go and take on these 4 different peoples that are there. So Gideon cries out to Israel and says, Israelites, send me in your fighting men. Let's go take on these guys. 32,000 men show up. Remember, there are probably millions of Israelites, and 32,000 only show up. That's it. So Gideon goes, man, this is not good. And all of a sudden, God says this to Gideon. The Lord said to Gideon, you got too many men, man. It's like, I got 32,000. There's like 140-some thousand people. They are military trained. They are well armed. They're going to destroy us. We are malnourished. We don't have weapons. We don't know what we're doing. 32,000. I need 332,000. God goes, that's too much. God says, Gideon, go tell the men, if any of you are scared, you can leave. 22. I know we're not good at math. We've established that. How many are left? 10, A plus, 10,000. All right, you guys get an A plus for today. There's only 10,000 left. Gideon goes, okay, this is what we're doing, God, 10,000 men. And guess what God says? You got too many. God says to Gideon, there's still too many men. Gideon, take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. So Gideon takes them down to the water. And we hear this. There the Lord said to them, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps from those who kneel down to drink. So anybody who gets down completely on their knees and puts their face down into the water like this, please, Lord, let me get back up again. And that was just not a good idea. I did it, yay! If that's the least we have to do for applause, we're doing really great. This is good. You're a good audience. All right, so anyone who kneels all the way down, those you get rid of. But any of them that scoop water like this, Gideon, those you can keep. That's the difference maker. You know how many were left? Anybody know this story? 300. 300. Only 300. 32,000 down to 10,000 down to 300. Now, Bible commentaries, almost every Bible commentary I read on this, says the reason why God had the ones that went like this and lapped up water like this is because those were the good fighting men so that they could keep their eyes on the horizon. You know what I think? I think that's counterproductive to what God was doing. Because that'd be like God leaving 300 Navy SEALs with them. You know what I think? I think, we'll ask God when we get to heaven on this, but what I think, the 300 that God left for them went like this and scooped water because there were 300 old fat dudes with bad knees. I can't get down. That's what Gideon's got left. That's what he's fighting with against these Eastern peoples, these 4 different ones that are there. Talk about an impossible situation. What is your impossible situation that you thought about earlier? What is your impossible situation that you thought of earlier? Our God is in the business of making the impossible possible, even if you got 300 old fat dudes with bad needs. That's what our God is in the absolute business of doing. Final point for us. All right, God balances your life when you look up in faith. How does this work out? So God says, Gideon, I know you need some reinsurance, man. This is not going well for you. You're not excited about the 300 old fat dudes with bad knees, so you're going to have some reassurance. So God says, Gideon, I see what's going on. I know what you need. Gideon, do this. Gideon, get up and go down against the camp because I am going to give it into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp, you by yourself, Gideon, go down and listen to what they're saying. So in the cover of darkness, Gideon, like army crawls down to the camp. It takes him quite a while. By the time he finally gets there, Gideon arrives just as a man was telling a friend his dream. He arrives at the exact moment where there's the shift change from the night guard to the earliest morning guard. If Gideon crawls 1 degree this way, he misses it. If Gideon crawls at least 1 degree or more this way, he misses it. If Gideon leaves any later or gets there earlier and hangs out and leaves, he misses it. But what does God do? He gets him there at the exact time for this to be said. I had a dream, he said. A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. Now, barley bread is what super poor people, poor people, a.k.a. the Israelites, ate. So barley loaf came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent, not a tent, the tent. Importance, meaning the leader of the Midianites' tent, with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. The guy says this can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp of these 4 different peoples into his hands. What has Gideon done up until this point? Nothing. He broke down a stick of an Asherah pole. And he burned a bull on it. That's all he did. But God worked this fear into the peoples that were there. Gideon was so overwhelmed by the power of what he knew God was doing in the impossible that in that moment it says that Gideon prayed. Now the way that you and I typically pray is like this, but do you know how they prayed in the Old Testament? A lot of times they looked up in prayer. Gideon looked up in prayer and in trust of what God, the Almighty, can do. God who's in the business of making the impossible possible. So what ends up happening then is Gideon takes his 300 old fat dudes with bad knees. He has a torch, puts a clay pot over it so that they can't see the flame that's in there. And they have a trumpet. And he says 300 of the old fat guys this way around the camp. 300 of the old fat guy, or 100, excuse me. 100 of the old fat guys this way. I'm not good at math either. Okay? No, I was doing so good. 100, 100, 100, right? And at the sound of Gideon, they smash the clay pots. They see fire all the way around them. They blow the trumpets and they yell for the Lord and for Gideon. And God caused such confusion among those 4 different people who speak 4 different languages in the middle of the night, and the fear that had spread through the camp about Gideon and this massive army of the Israelites, they turned on one another and they all killed each other. And God gave them the victory. Because God balances out our lives when we look up to him in faith. Can I have a volunteer? Look at that. That was amazing how quickly you were willing to. Thank you. Give a round of applause, please. Without breaking instruments. Can you do me a favor? Or poking her in the face, okay? I want you, or hitting that. This is going to go really well. This is going to go great. Okay, can you stand right here? Okay? I want you to try to balance this, all right? Look down here and try to, look down here though. And try to, yep, that's where you got to do it, right? Oh, I'm here for you, okay? All right, try it again. You almost went down. All right, thank you. Give you a round of applause. Today we're talking on the truth that God balances our lives in unexpected ways. And you go, I don't know how God's going to do that because my life is completely out of balance. My life is bouncing here and there, spinning this way, that way, all these plates that I absolutely cannot do. But when you look up and trust, this can go all over the place because that's the outside stuff. Remember, the center, that's the main thing. And so God balances out your life. God balances out your life in those unexpected ways. God balances out your life in the small steps of faith so you can do the big step of faith. God balances out your life when you look up. When you look up to him. And you trust that no matter what's happening to you in this life, God is God. God is sovereign. And God loves you. If you ever have to know how much you're loved, goodness, friends, look at the cross. Look at what God broke through eternity to give to you. You. As messed up and as screwed up as we are. You. God loves you. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible told me so. Trust it. Because it's the truth. Amen. All right. Thank you for listening. Appreciate you all. Mike, thanks for inviting me back.